Hello and welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year to you guys and thank you for tuning in. It is me, Will Girling, sports and performance nutritionist, and today I'm doing my first Q&A video where I'm answering all your questions to give you the answers that you need to be able to make the most out of those situations. Let's roll that intro. So our first question by Richard T. I struggle with food or drink items containing added fructose or high fructose values, especially 2-to-1 ratio carb drinks and such. Bars made with dates or apples or honey, etc. They don't sit well. Well, I can tell you, Richard, that you're not alone in this and that GI distress caused by fructose is exceedingly common. And it is recommended for people that do have a lot of stomach issues when doing exercise, endurance exercise, that you do reduce the amount of fructose you have before the session and then during. And I would avoid, as you're saying, things like date energy bars or date balls that you can make yourself at home or high fructose amounts. And that's just something that is common within GI distress. And I would suggest for you just to switch to a sucrose or a 1-to-1 ratio of glucose and fructose and see how that works for you. I would drop off any fructose before the session. So that's also taking away some bananas, raisins, apple, fruit juice, things like this before the session, and that will reduce the amount of fructose from there. Also opting for low fructose options, so rather than honey, having maple syrup. Both have fructose in, but maple syrup has a lower level of fructose than honey. So they are potentials for yourself. And that's the same if you're making any like energy balls or bars. If you're using honey in those, maybe swap for maple syrup or agave, which is also lower in fructose. Hope that answered your question, Richard. Question 2. The next question is from Matthew Tankersley. I think that's how you say it. For multi-day events with long days in the saddle, greater than 16 hours, what's your recommendation for eating carbs versus fats versus proteins? Do you need any of them at all, or fats at all, protein at all, etc.? I am going to be doing an ultra endurance video on this to go into a big day like that a bit more. But what I can tell you is that fat plays no real significant role in energy providing to that specific day. So you're not going to take on fat and use that as a source of energy straight away compared to carbohydrate. You have plenty of endogenous or fat stores on your body to utilize unless you are exceedingly lean, like 5% or less body fat, which is none of you out there, really. So having carbohydrate is the main focus to maintain blood glucose levels and to keep glycogen high, and also to help not impair your immune system, because low glycogen and low carbohydrate training, especially over long rides like that, will start to affect the immune system. Protein, definitely on a 16-hour ride, should be taken and being had at every 3 to 4 hour intervals. Now that might mean you're having it on the bike, and in which case you could have a protein bar, protein gel. You could stop at a gas station and get something like a nourishment or a protein shake, or once again another protein bar. If you're not prone to GI issues, having some milk is a really easy one to get some protein in there as well. It could be a case that you have some meat as well if you are doing such big days. I'm assuming you will probably stop for a proper meal. In terms of protein at the end of the day, for the next day, if you are doing multi-days, I would have something like yogurt or milk again before you go to sleep for a slow digesting and slow releasing protein to aid in recovery. But ultimately, fats on the bike do not provide any energy and any performance improvement, so focusing mainly on carbohydrates and that protein every 3 to 4 hours is what you want. Question 3. Eric Schiller asks, does intermittent fasting affect your recovery after a HIIT session? Well, I can tell you that there is some research out there to suggest that fasting does reduce inflammation. So that would improve your recovery. But most of all, you need to look at your frequency of sessions, volume and intensity. And if these are high, then you maintaining a positive protein balance more regularly will be more beneficial to recovery over not eating. You may have a reduction in inflammation from fasting, and something called autophagy, which is cell detoxification and aiding of cell cleansing. But that does not outweigh you having regular protein intakes, which are going to improve recovery over a whole day. I spoke about protein balance in my last video, link in the corner, and how the more of a positive protein balance you're in, that is going to affect your recovery better. So having like an 8 to 10 hour window of you not having anything is only going to impair that and not going to be beneficial for you long term, especially if you're doing lots of hard, intense training sessions. Once again, if you're also training in the morning and then going to continue to fast through the day, that's not going to be beneficial for you. We do want to be getting some level of protein in from 4 hours after to maximum of 4 hours after a training session, realistically, to help with adaptation, because adaptation is the replenishment of cells and recovery of them and repairing of muscle fibers and so on. So if you have no protein, no amino acids, which are the building blocks for that, you're not going to adapt as well as if you did have those available. Question 4. Pedro Castro. Do we need extra vitamins? Is it necessary to take vitamin complexes during winter? Once again, it's a great question. There's not really any efficacy out there for taking a multivitamin, and they don't provide anything more than if you're just getting a well-rounded diet. If you are having, at minimum, your 5 fruit and veg a day, and you're eating the calories you need, then you should be getting everything you want. Now, if you're in a calorie deficit, then the amount of micronutrients we're getting is going to be reduced potentially, especially if you're not doing it properly or the food choices you're making aren't optimal. So, having said that, taking a multivitamin can cover some bases just in case. In specific for winter, I don't think so. I don't think you need to really take a multivitamin specifically for that. I would recommend taking vitamin D3, and once again, a link in the corner for my immunity video that talks about what you should be doing over the winter months to help with your immune system and making sure you're not getting ill. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, question 5. Joss McKenney asks, what's a good system for eating prior to sleeping? Is it a good idea to not eat carbs in the evening for weight loss? And does this affect performance? Well, I can tell you that having carbohydrates late in the evening does not cause you to stop losing body fat. Your body does not suddenly go, God damn, it's 7 o'clock, carbs are going to become fat now. Doesn't really do that. Especially, let's say, if you trained at 7 p.m. at night. So what you're actually looking at is just making sure you're getting the right amount of carbohydrates, protein, fat, and being in a calorie deficit overall to aid in you recovering and also performing. But no, eating carbs in the evening will not cause you to reduce the amount of fat loss that you're trying to get. It is a fallacy, a myth. In fact, I could tell you that it could improve performance and recovery, because if you did do an evening training session like many working individuals out there who might train at 7, 8, even 9 p.m. at night, let's say the next day you're going into a morning training session because that's what you have to do to fit it in your day, then you're actually going to be training again within 12 hours, possibly even 8 hours. And in which case, having carbohydrates after that session is going to be even more integral to being able to perform in the morning afterwards. So, if anything, it's probably more beneficial to have carbohydrates in the evening, depending on the situation. Question 6. Oh shit. Question 6. Americo85552, a unique name, says, hi Will, alright, hi. What would you eat for a crit race that starts 30 to 40 minutes after waking up? It's an awesome question, I like this one. So if you have a crit race that is starting super early and that soon after waking up, then there should be a few priorities. One is getting carbohydrate in to replace the liver glycogen you've lost in maintaining blood glucose levels whilst you're asleep, because that's the thing. So your liver glycogen is depleted in the morning. Liver glycogen has a direct relationship with maintaining blood glucose levels. So replenishing that is super important to then performing in that crit race. So I would suggest having around 0.8 to, you could go all the way up to 2 grams per kilogram body weight of carbohydrate, but I'd probably stick around that 0.8 to 1.2 grams amount to make sure that you can perform for that. So for most of you, that'll probably be around 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrate. What that might look like for a lot of you would be a couple of slices of toast with some banana and honey on it and a glass of fruit juice. Now, if you are affected by fructose, as the earlier question, you could go for some toast again, but with some jam on it instead, and not having any fruit in this instance. I would also ensure that you're hydrating. It's important that obviously after sleeping for anywhere between 6 to 8 hours that you're getting fluids back in you so you can obviously be hydrated for that session. And also having some caffeine, of course, will not only speed up the absorption of the carbohydrate that you've just had, but also improve your performance. And if it is super important, then having a performance enhancing amount of caffeine at 3 milligrams per kilogram body weight will aid you even further. Do you need protein? Not necessarily. You can have the protein after the session and you'll still recover near enough the same. So don't worry about that. I would also make sure that the meal is low in fat because that will slow down digestion. So going for simple, easier carbohydrates that are going to digest quite quickly. So opting for moderate to high glycemic index foods will mean that it'll go into the bloodstream quicker. Blood sugar levels will start peaking around 15-20 minutes after your ingestion of that carbohydrate. So possibly timing it to match with the start of your race may be more worthwhile. Question 7. Paul Wild asks, would you recommend a different nutritional strategy for riding an all-nighter? He hasn't heard anything about this, but he's wondering if there would be any differences. No, there wouldn't be any differences. Riding and nutrition for supporting performance is going to be the same whatever the time. The only difference, I would say, is that you need to stay awake. So having caffeine regularly would help with that. Starting off with a large dose of 3 to 5 milligrams per kilogram body weight an hour before that starts, and then every 4 hours topping up on that at around 200 milligrams should suffice in aiding you in staying alert, staying awake, and still performing through the night, if that's what you're needing to do. It's an interesting question in that probably not many people are going to do that, but having worked with Chris Hall over the 24-hour national TT, or doing something similar to that, if you're doing an Audax or so on, then this would be important for you. But once again, having that large dose of caffeine an hour before the start, and then every 4 hours or so, having another intake of 200 milligrams should help.